XII, that is 11, compound interest is abbreviated by capital CI. Let's take this down. Compound interest, most often I'll be making use of CI, is another form of interest paid on an amount of money that is borrowed. In this case, an interest is calculated for the next year added to the principal and reinvested as a new principal. New principal for that year. This continues right up to the time frame elapses. Let's take a very simple example with compound interest. If someone invests $10,000 for 3 years on a compound interest, for the first year, you will calculate the interest made by the person for that first year. They will add the interest onto the initial amount invested, that is the principal, to get the principal for the second year. And the principal for that second year is reinvested as a new principal. For that second year, the interest for that second year on the new principal is calculated and added to the initial principal and still reinvested back as a new principal for the third year. That's how compound interest functions. Most banks and other financial institutions, they work on compound interest, and that's why most often it is advisable not to borrow on compound interest. Instead, it's much cheaper borrowing on simple interest. Let's continue. In case of loans, this is repeated for each year. This is what banks do of loan, causing the principal to keep increasing for every year, since the principal for every year is simply equal to the initial principal plus the interest made for past year. Compound interest can be calculated using the simple interest formula per year while adjusting the principal amount for the year, since the principal for each year changes, and taking the sum of the simple interest for all the years of the investment. You take the sum of all the simple interest for all the years of the investment, it simply gives you the compound interest within the duration of the investment. Alternatively, the compound interest formula can be used to calculate the total amount of, not the amount by E, total amount of compound interest payable over the whole period of the loan. If the rate is R percent per annum, means R percent per year, the time is T years, and principal P Then the amount E is simply equal to principal times 1 plus the rate all over 100, all this raised to the power t, which is the time. This is how we get the amount. Now getting the compound interest CI is simply equal to, we take the amount E minus the principal. This is how we get the compound interest for the duration of the investment. Now let's look at some examples on how we can handle questions involving compound interest. Take this down. Example. We are going to see how to answer such questions with formula and not making use of the formula too. Let's take this down. The amount 45,000 francs CFA is given out on loan, on compound interest for 2 years. 2 years is the duration, at a rate of 4% per annum. Find the interest payable on the loan after this period. Take solution. We are going to answer this question by making use of two methods. First method 1. First, we are going to build a table as such with the first column carrying the time, that is whether it is the first year or the second year. The next column carries the calculation of the interest, calculation of the interest for the year. Then the next column carries the new principal. Since for each year the principal changes. The first year, for the first year, the amount invested, the principal, we are going to denote the principal for the first year as P subscript 1, which is equal to 45,000 francs CFA, time, since it is for the first year, the time is 1 year, that duration 1, the value of the rate R is 4 for that year. Now we can calculate the interest made first year. And this will simply be equal to take the principal for the first year times the rate times the time, which is 1 year, all over 100. And this will simply be equal to, we are going to multiply 45,000 francs CFA by 4 times 1, we divide by 100. This will simply be equal to 100 will go into 45,000 francs CFA, 450 times 100 will go into 100 one time. 450 times 4 gives us 1,800 times 1 remains 1,800. We attach the franc CFA. So this is the interest made for the first year. Next, we need to calculate the principal which is being invested for the second year. P2 is the principal for the second year. Is simply equal to the principal for the first year, P1, plus the interest made for the first year. This will be equal to 45,000 francs CFA, which is the principal for the first year, plus the interest for the first year, which is 1,800 francs CFA. This will simply be equal to 46,800 francs CFA. This is the principal invested for the second year. We go now to the second year. The second year we have the principal P2. It is 46,800 francs CFA. The time period for the second year is 1 year. The value of the rate remains the same, which is 4. We have to calculate I2, the interest made the second year, and I2 will simply be P2 times R times T. We divide by 100. And this will simply be equal to P2, which is 46,800 francs CFA, times R, which is 4, times T, which is 1. Then we divide by 100. This will simply be equal to 46,800 divided by 100 gives us 468. 468 times 4 gives us 1,872 times 1 remains the same amount, 1,872 francs CFA. This is a simple interest the amount makes for the second year of the investment. Now, knowing the interest for the first year and the interest for the second year, we can now calculate the compound interest. Compound interest, CI, is simply equal to I1, the interest made for the first year, plus I2, the interest made for the second year. And this will be equal to, for I1, we have 1,800 francs CFA, plus I2, which is 1,872 francs CFA. This will give us an amount of 3,672 francs CFA. This is the compound interest made by an amount of 45,000 francs CFA for 2 years at a rate of 4% per annum. Now let's see how we can solve it by making use of the formula method. Take method 2 by using the compound interest formula. We have the amount is equal to the principal times 1 plus the value of the rate over 100. All this raised to the power t, where t is the duration of the investment. From the question, we have our principal as 45,000 francs CFA. We have the value of the rate as 4. The time of the investment is 2 years. Now we can find the amount. The amount will simply be equal to, we take 45,000 francs CFA times 1 plus the value of the rate, which is 4 over 100. All this raised to the power 2. This will simply be equal to 45,000 francs CFA times 1 plus 4 over 100 can be simplified, and this will give us 1 on 25. All this squared. This will simply be equal to 45,000 francs CFA times 1 here can be written as 1 over 1. Simplifying what we have in the brackets, we find the LCM of their denominators, is 25. 25 divided by 1 gives us 25 times 1, 25, plus 25 divided by 25 gives us 1 times 1 is 1. All this squared. So this will give us 45,000 francs CFA times 26 all over 25, all this squared. This will be equal to 45,000 francs CFA times 26, because 25 plus 1 gives 26 over 25, all this squared as such. This will simply be equal to 45,000 francs CFA over 1 times 26 squared gives us 676 all over 25 squared gives us 625. We can further simplify. This will be equal to 45,000 francs CFA divided by 625 gives us 72 francs CFA. We multiply 72 francs CFA by 676, and this will give us an amount of 48,672 francs CFA. This amount we have has the principal which is being invested at the beginning and the compound interest. Now we need to find the compound interest. Our compound interest is simply equal to, we take the amount, this amount, minus the principal which is invested at the beginning. This will be equal to 48,672 francs CFA minus the principal which is invested, which is 45,000 francs CFA, and this will simply be equal to 3,672 francs CFA. Gives the same answer. You'll see that if you make use of the tabular method or you make use of the formula method, you will still end up having the same results. Now let's take a exercise for application on this. Exercises for Multiplication goes for the following find here we have the compound interest, which is denoted by CI. For B, we have to find the amount, which is denoted by E. Question I, we have 40,000 francs CFA borrowed for 3 years at a rate of 8% per annum. For 2I, we have 630,000 francs CFA borrowed for 2 years at a rate of 7% per annum. And lastly, 3I, we have 7,500,000 borrowed for 4 years at a rate of 5% per annum. In our next video, we are going to correct the following exercises on compound interest. If in case you have any worries, leave your questions at the comment section. Please like the video, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching.